Hey y'all, we're back for Discerning the Voice of God by Priscilla Shirer. We are on day 2, the plan to do God's bidding. So let's pray and we'll get started. Oh, Daddy, we just love you with all of our hearts, Lord, and we trust you in all things, Lord, and we desire and long to hear your still small voice. We desire to be obedient and submissive to you, Lord, and to follow your will and your will alone, Lord. We pray, Lord, that you would teach us, that you would change us, that you would remold us into who you want us to be, Father, and help us to have ears to hear and a heart to listen for your still small voice and to obey immediately, Father. And I just pray, Lord, that you would use your word in this Bible study to change us, to just help us to be set on fire for you, Lord. So many are lukewarm these days, Lord, and you prophesied that. You told us that in the last days we were going to be the lukewarm church, Lord, and we sure are, and I hate it, Lord. And I just pray, Lord, that you would stir what little embers we have left, Lord, into a roaring, fiery inferno for you, Father, and that we would be the one that starts revival in our areas, in our homes, in our own hearts and minds, Father, and that we would just carry your word with us wherever we go, that we would put our armor on, that we would be able to discern your still small voice, Father, and that we would walk in obedience to you, Father. And we love you, Daddy. We trust you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So Christine Kane says, I know the Lord is speaking to me when I have an impression during prayer that is consistent with his word and supported by wise counsel. Obedience can be an intimidating word. For some, it conjures up odious thoughts of harsh, seemingly pointless regimens of rules and regulations that are stifling and oppressive instead of life-giving and fulfilling. And that's me, because I grew up in the Catholic Church and I still fight what I didn't think got into my head, but Satan used to get into my head of rules, and I could never be perfect, so why bother? And God's this big old judge sitting in his throne waiting to hammer me down with each sin that I do and stuff like that. And so I can relate to that. For others, it seems oddly devoid of intimacy and relationship, more of a never good enough attempt at measuring up. That's me because of my issues. And for even more of us, the word itself feels like a threat to our innate desire for independence. And that's me too, because like I said in the last video, I have massive control issues. And so I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and nobody else is going to tell me otherwise. And so I need to really work on surrendering that, and stop trying to be so independent. It bristles against the fabric of our self-reliance and autonomy, which means self-governing. So she says, in the paragraph above, underline any perceptions about obedience that you felt or experienced before. Well, like I said, that would be all three for me. What other kinds of defining sentiments do the word obedience and its ramifications immediately bring to your mind or bubble up in your emotions? And this was easy for me. Denial of self, struggle, tightness of body, lack of control, fear, heart pounding, and shaking. It just basically brings on a panic attack for me. Then she asked, what things, people, or life circumstances have been contributing factors to this thought process? Well, I could be here for a 10-hour video for y'all on that one. So I'll make it short, sweet, and simple. My parents, like I explained in the previous video, myself, because I'm not... there are a lot of times that I'm not willing to change, and not willing to allow him to change me. Satan, of course, and other people. Because I like to control other people, but I also don't want other people controlling me. Excuse me. So she says, obedience, at least the kind that our good, loving, sovereign God requires, is neither legalistic nor lacking in affection. Although it places needed boundaries and demands on us, as in, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me, Matthew 16:24. Each bit of instruction he gives is born out of the tenderness of his heart. So he's not this judge trying to pound us down into who he wants us to be. He's not this man on a horse whipping us into submission. He's not taking his staff and beating the living daylights out of us into submission. He does it out of the tenderness of his heart, out of his love, out of his caring for us, out of knowing as a father that he has so much better for us than we could ever possibly imagine. And he wants to give it to us, but we just need to be willing and open. So born out of the tenderness of his heart toward us and his desire to steer us toward his best for our lives. Obedience is not a no. It is actually his best yes. It swims in oceans of grace and leads us to freedom, wholeness, and health. It opens us up to his unbridled blessing and abundance. I absolutely love that. So she said, obedience is like a delicate dance of trust. It may require real sacrifice from us, while somehow leading to blessing and incomparable abundance. So if you think of dancing, if you think of two people dancing, one of y'all need to lead, right? You know, most of the time, the man leads. There are some women who insist on leading. Maybe the man doesn't know how to dance or whatever. But my point is, if you are two people dancing together, you both can't lead, or you'll be stepping all over each other and messing everything up, and the whole dance will just become you falling on the floor. And isn't that exactly what happens? If we're leading the dance, God can't work. And so we're tripping all over ourselves. When God leads us, it's a beautiful, perfect waltz. And it just is the most marvelous dance that you've ever seen and ever experienced in your life. And he will teach you the steps, and you will just flow with him. Let's see. So it binds us while concurrently loosing us. It holds us tightly while also letting us go. It redirects us only to replenish and renew us. It restrains us while simultaneously releasing us. It limits us while also opening up spacious possibility. I absolutely love all those. Without our intentional surrender to the former, we cannot experience the benefits of the latter. And that's something that I think that I need to write down and hang on my visor in my car or something, so I can remember that that's what obedience and a delicate dance does for us. So we must plan and intentionally strategize to pursue them, to pursue obedience. If left to our flesh's tendencies toward rebellion, we will live in a constant state of resistance toward God and his ways. But if we literally plan to obey, we put ourselves in a position any day of the week to hear what he wants us to do next, and then to have him bless us with the supernatural joy of following him. So on page 17, she says it's absolutely essential to work through a plan that's been organized ahead of time if we are to have any hope of success. Spur of the moment, flying by the seat of our pants operations invite complete mayhem. And I can testify to that because that's been pretty much my whole life. Only a predetermined commitment to a plan is able, or again, at least potentially able, to hold our lives, mornings, days, whatever, together. So let's talk about the key of surrendered obedience that leads to actually hearing from God and being able to live with the pure satisfaction of doing His will. Is anything really more important than that? No? Then what's your plan for doing it? What's my plan for doing it? That's something that I need to sit down and figure out. What is my plan? What is going to be my plan in all of this? And ask God what His plan is. So we aren't haphazard and arbitrary with a lot of things we deem important in our life. Our health, our retirement plan, our monthly calendar of appointments. What about our commitment to being spiritually aligned with God of the universe and with how He wants to direct our hearts? If we don't put an intentional resolve and strategic course of action for following Him in place, we're basically leaving it up in the air, susceptible to the flighty whims of our circumstances and feelings. There's simply too much eternal treasure at stake for that. Go to God's word for instruction. In the story of the patriarch Abraham, we find both the value and profitable results of making plans to obey. So let's read Genesis 2:22, 2 through 3 in the margin. God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love." And I actually like that, that He said your only son. Because even God didn't recognize Abraham's other son as his son because it wasn't the one that God commanded him to have. Abraham did that on his own. He walked in disobedience to God, and he walked in obedience of his wife. And all heck broke loose, and it's still breaking loose today, and we're still suffering the consequences for the people in the Middle East from that. And so I love how He says, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering as on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac. And he cut the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. And this story is just absolutely amazing to me. And all the stuff that she says in here, it's just phenomenal to really dig deep and to see the immediate obedience and then the following through with the steps to be able to get everything in order, like we pack on vacation and we do this and we do that. That's exactly what he did to prepare for the next day. And so it's just absolutely amazing to see the immediate. There was no, well, maybe I didn't hear you correctly. No, it was, oh, you said that? Okay, I'm going to go do this. So she says, look for the following words, then fill in the blanks by writing what the verse says Abraham did in response to God's instruction. So saddled his donkey, for example, is the first one. So took 2 of his young men and Isaac, cut the wood, went to the place God told him. So the succinct summary of Abraham's activity in verse 3, outside of the emotional torment invoked by verse 2, makes the whole thing sound really easy. Yet the assignment Yahweh gave to Abraham could not have been accomplished on a whim. No haphazard spontaneity would enable Abraham to follow through on this mission. It was too arduous and meticulous of a task to accomplish without adequate preparation, strategy, intentionality, accountability, and dedication to detail. Each of these would be required in order to fully obey God's directive. So she says for each word on the next page, look up the accompanying verse. Ask the Lord to give you clarity as to how the principles behind these elements might become a more strategic part of your plan of action to become obedient to His will, and jot down anything that really stands out to you. So I'm going to read you the verses, and then I'll tell you what stood out to me. So Nehemiah 2, 7 through 9 and 13 through 15. Moreover, I said unto the king, if it please the king, Let letters be given me to the governors beyond the river, that they may convey me over till I come into Judah, and a letter unto Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the palace, which appertain to the house, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall enter into. And the king granted me, according to the good hand of my God upon me. Then I came to the governors beyond the river, and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon well, and to the dung port, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates thereof were consumed with fire. Then I went on to the gate of the fountain, and to the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that was under me to pass. Then I went up in the night by the brook, and viewed the wall, and turned back, and entered by the gate of the valley, and so returned. And so, I put follow his word, read it, follow his path, not my own, go where he tells me to go, no matter what, ask for his directions in prayer, and gather all that I need. So strategy, Ephesians 6:11-13, says, put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. So I put on armor daily, know who I'm fighting against, and be alert and be prepared. Accountability, Ecclesiastes 4:11-12 says, again, if two lie together, then they have heat, but how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So I have two accountability partners, those who will truly walk with me, and fight with me. Intentionality, Colossians 3:1-2 says, if you then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth on the right hand of God. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. Excuse me. So I put eyes on Christ, heaven, eternity, godly things, only these things. Die to the things of the world. And dedication, Daniel 1:8 says, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So I put purpose in my heart to stay on the path and do all that I'm told. No back and forth, no turning back. So then she says, consider the following as it related to Abraham's plan of obedience. Number 1, preparation and strategy. The journey to Mount Moriah in Jerusalem required 3 days. This meant gathering supplies ahead of time for overnight camping, as well as measuring out rations for food and drink, all in order to sustain the entourage as they made their trip to the place of sacrifice. 2, accountability. Abraham's choice to bring 2 servants along may have been to provide help in carrying enough wood to build an altar, but perhaps he brought them along for companionship as he carried out this difficult assignment. 3, intentionality and dedication. Along with the wood, glowing pieces of charcoal or other embers would have been carried in small pottery containers and carefully nursed along until a fire was needed. So on page 20, she says, in each of the previous facts, what do you observe about Abraham's commitment to intentionality in his obedience? And for number 1, I put, he thought about exactly what he would need, how long it would take, and gathered supplies and prepared ahead of time. So it's, to visualize that, it's kind of like when we're going on vacation and we have a bunch of kids with us. So I always sit down and I make a list. I make a list separate for everybody of what each person is going to need, and then I make a generalized list of, everything that everybody's going to need. So that was the same thing. He had to sit there and think, okay, what am I going to need to be able to accomplish this trip and have everything that we need? So number 2, I put, knew he would need help and friends, company, so he got people to join him. And that's the thing, is we can't do life alone. We have to have, and I'm always reiterating this. You have to have a very small, strong core of people. You can have a lot of friends, but your group that you mainly hang around with, that you confide in, that have that ability to speak into your life, no matter how painful it may be to hear, that has to be very small. You don't want to be going around getting advice from everybody. You need to have good, godly core of people around you. And I would say no more than 3 or 4. Because you want it to be very personalized and very, very strong and tight-knit. So number 3, took care to have fire and took care of it while there, so no problems or delays could occur or would occur. So he did everything that he needed to do, so he would be doing God's will in God's time. See how he refused to leave anything to chance? He didn't just hope to carry out God's instructions. He put measures in place to be certain of it. Certain he would arrive at his destination. Certain he'd be equipped with the appropriate supplies to carry out the task. Certain of having suitable accountability in place to make sure the job was done with precision. Every step along the way, Abraham's plan put him in position to hear what God would say or do next. This may not be what we prefer our obedience to feel like, but this is what obedience looks like. This is what obedience does. When Abraham lived out his trust in God by making plans to obey what he'd been told, his faith was rewarded with the miraculous appearance of a substitutionary animal and the subsequent salvation of his son Isaac. Will we, like Abraham, prepare to be obedient to God? Will we commit to align our actions and attitudes with the direction of obedience? Will we take the necessary precautions to cut out people or pastimes that influence us towards disobedience? And I have to say, I've done the people part. I've gotten rid of a lot of people in my life that just were not healthy for me. Even Christians, they just were not healthy for me. And that was hard, but I had to choose to do that, and that was a walk of obedience for me, and that just happened in the last 6 months or so. And it's funny because you think that you have these really great friends and they'd be there for you, but not one of them reached out to me ever. And so, it was really eye-opening to me, that I could think of them as really close friends, but we obviously weren't. And so that's something that I've done now, pastimes, I've really got to work on. And so I really need to work on that, because I waste a lot of time doing things that I really don't need to be doing, and they're just time wasters. For me, it's just getting out of my mind and relaxing and just not having to think or whatever. But again, they're time wasters, and we only have so much time on this earth, and so I need to stop doing that so I can be working for the kingdom and not just wasting what little time I may have left. Because I'm old. So she says at the top of 21, will we fortify our resolve by intentionally surrounding ourselves with influences that encourage us towards godliness? Will we, and that's definitely something that we need people in our lives to hold us accountable to our walk, to our talk, to our attitudes, to our actions, and that are encouraging us to become more godly and not hanging out with people that are encouraging us to look more like the world. Will we humble ourselves to remain accountable to other mature believers who have our best interest at heart? And that's hard because you don't like hearing the truth. Everybody who's outside of your little circle or your little body can see things more clearly than we do, and so it's hard to hear the truth. But we need to humble ourselves and say, "Oh, okay, so God is using these people to show me something that I can't see because I'm in the midst of it." And so that's a good thing, and we need to humble ourselves and listen. Will we commit to shifting our attitudes or actions the moment we realize they're out of alignment with God's will? And that's hard too, because, you may be on the path of something, and then, you may think it's going to be the most wonderful thing in the world, or whatever, and that you're doing it for God. And God, you see this big old billboard that's saying, stop, don't do this, da, 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 but you're already running 60 miles an hour, and it's hard to stop on a dime. You've gotten to the point where you yourself, others, Satan, whatever, has gotten you so excited to have whatever is down there, and God's saying, no, 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 that's not my will for you. And it's then you've got to go, but I want it. I want it. I want that person, or I want that thing, or I want whatever, or I want that ministry, or I want to be that person, whatever. And are we willing to slam on the brakes and stop on that dime and say, "Oh, okay, this isn't your will for me. Then I'm not gonna do this, and I'm gonna turn around, and I'm gonna go your direction and not mine." And that is a hard thing to do, but it's something that we must do. If you say, "Yes, I will," what kinds of plans would help you turn these noble desires into real resolutions, especially in areas of your life where obedience is the most difficult? And so we need to focus on all of these and really question ourselves on this. So she says our answers to these questions will determine the extent to which our spiritual ears are primed to hear God. If you haven't already, on the inside of the front or back cover of this book, make a list of personal circumstances troubling you. As you work through this Bible study, focus on these circumstances and how God is speaking to you concerning them. God will undoubtedly be giving you new directives and insights as we journey together through these pages. The question is, what can you do today to strategize a lifestyle of obedience? So when He speaks, you're there with plans to obey. So that is the end of day 2. That has a lot. Don't just answer the questions that have spaces. Really sit down and think about all these little bullet points that she put in here. And ask yourself, are you willing to do this? And what is it going to take to be able to do it? And get out some binder paper or type on your computer, whatever is easier for you, and write down your answers. And even if it's 5 pages for one, because you've got so much stuff, do it. Because number one, you're getting it out and seeing it in black and white, because speaking and writing it down are so on opposite ends of the spectrum, and you have to write it down to be able to see it, so you can go, and so focus on those bullet points. Ask yourself those questions. Give yourself the answers. Be honest about it. No one else is going to read it except for you and God. Keep it in a safe place so no one else can read your answers. But answer those questions. Are you willing? Are you willing to do such and such? And write down what would be the walls that would make it hard, the gates that are locked, whatever the case may be, the thorns, the weeds, the bushes, the snakes, whatever that is going to block you or slow you down or whatever, so you can realize what those are so you can work on those. And don't forget to do what she says, and make your list of personal circumstances that are troubling you right now, and ask God to use this Bible study to speak to you so things can change in whatever aspect that is in your life. So that is the end. So we will see you again next time for day 3. I hope you're enjoying this. Please make sure you like and subscribe so you know you can get a notification when these videos come out. Please feel free to comment. I have a... we're going to leave it as the Armor of God Facebook page. And it has the same picture that I used in the videos. Or you can find me on Facebook. It's Linda Kiesling, Kiesling Bolton, and the link is, I'm totally public, and the link is up there also for my Facebook page. It might be on YouTube too, I don't remember. You know, find that Armor of God page, even if you're just coming in to do this Bible study, because I'll be putting up updates and stuff. I'm just not going to change the page because amazingly enough, I'm getting like 50, 60, 70 likes a month, and so people are finding it, and so I don't want to change the name of the page, but I have, you know, posts and stuff in there. And just so y'all know, I get in trouble a lot on Facebook. I go to Facebook jail a lot. And so I've made my son, Matthew Anderson, administrator. So if I can't get in, because if I go to Facebook jail on my personal page, I go to Facebook jail on all my pages and can't get in there. And so if I go to jail, I can at least log on to his and send messages and stuff that way. So it's still me. But yeah, I go to Facebook jail a lot. They like me there. Because I speak the truth and they don't like it. So I'm okay to go to Facebook jail. But yeah, so make sure you like and subscribe. Since we're right in the beginning of the study, make sure you're telling your friends, have them like and subscribe so you can get the notifications. Please feel free to either use the Armor of God Facebook page or the comment section here so we can have discussions and dialogue and questions and answers, and everybody can participate in that, you know, so we can have, you know, communication instead of just me talking to you and you just listening. You know, let's communicate with each other, because, you know, your accountability partners might be waiting out there for you and you just haven't met them yet because you're not commenting or talking or getting involved on the Facebook page or whatever. So you know, make sure you're doing all those things, and I look forward to talking to y'all next time. You guys have a blessed day.